One question that people love is this question of why there are some countries that are rich and why there are some countries that are poor. And over the years, I have come to believe that maybe that is not the right question. So, well, if that is not the right question, what is the right question that we need to answer? So consider the case of Argentina and Korea. And if we go back to the early 1970s, Argentina had an income that was 3 to 4 times larger than that of Korea. But the main export of Argentina was unmilled buckwheat. Okay? And Korea at that time, had a company that was called Kia Motors that had evolved, during decades, and in the mid-1970s was developing a combustion engine that was fully developed in Korea, that had no imported parts. So now, well, Korea was by all means poorer than Argentina. They didn't have the ability to buy as many things as Argentinians did, but when we compare what they were able to do compared to what Argentinians were able to do, we realized that maybe, they had a higher level of capacity, and that capacity was expressed in what they were making. So in some sense, that starts to tell us that maybe it's not why there are some countries that are rich and why there are some countries that are poor, the question that we want to answer, but why there are some countries that have a larger capacity to crystallize the imagination of their people than others. Okay? So now consider, for example, the case of the Spaniards that came to conquer America 500 years ago. So when the Spaniards came, they had an income that by the most accepted measures was twice that of the Incas or that of the Aztecs. How could that explain the fact that a handful of them was able to conquer an entire nation? Well, it doesn't, So the idea is that although a llama, or let's say, a horse can be traded for 4 llamas on the market, that doesn't make, a horse equivalent to 4 llamas, or doesn't endow a soldier with 4 llamas with the capacity of a soldier with 1 horse. So like those equivalences that I think pure economic equivalents allow us to draw do not necessarily map to the ability of people to express themselves in different ways. And what you see is sometimes that when you look at the Spaniards when they came compared to the Incas that were here, although the differences in income were small, the capacities that were endowed by the different ideas that they have been able to crystallize in products such as swords, or such as the armor, or the domestication of the horse, were products that endow them with capacities that were vastly superior to the ones that the Incas had, and that eventually provided them with the upper hand. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that eventually this idea of why there are some countries that are rich and why there are some countries that are poor is not necessarily the central question, and what we should be looking at is not, which are the countries that are better at buying things from others, but which are the countries that are better at producing things that have never existed. And that's ultimately what we should go after, to try to understand what makes some countries more productive in those terms, not in their ability to buy, but in their ability to make. One conspicuous aspect of our world is that is immensely unnatural. So look at where we are now. So look at my clothes and the chair, there's a camera. What all these things have in common? Well, all of these things have in common that actually at some point they were imagined by someone, and later they were concocted into a collection of atoms, and ideas that we call products. So in some sense, all of these are crystals of imagination. And the fact that our world is unnatural is actually something that goes to the extreme. So imagine now that we take our world and we remove everything that was at some point imagined by someone. Okay, so I would be naked, I would not be sitting in a chair, and probably would be buried underground because now we're in a basement. Okay, so there wouldn't be a building, there wouldn't be a camera, there wouldn't be someone listening to us right now. There would be nothing of this. We would be back, to the time that we had no civilization. So in some sense, the deep difference between us and the civilizations that were prior to us, or to the animal civilizations, is the fact that we can take ideas, we can take imagination, and we can free that imagination from the prison of our minds and bring it into tangible products that we can share with others. So why do we crystallize imagination? What's the point of crystallizing imagination? Well, we crystallize imagination because by doing so, we allow the practical uses of the imagination of some people to affect the lives of others in positive ways. So for example, today is really cold outside, and I can wear a coat that is very warm and is made of synthetic materials that I have no clue how to make. We all like to have clean hair, but very few of us know how to manufacture shampoo. And we all like to talk with our relatives and with our friends and keep in touch with our families if we move out of town. But many of us, if we were left to our own devices, the most sophisticated technology that we could build for communication is a couple of cans and a string. So if we think about it, we're able to live at these high levels of comfort, not because of anything other than our ability to transform the imagination that we have and crystallize it into products that we can then share with others. And that ultimately it's what underlies the ability of our civilization to generate better living standards for all. Without our ability to crystallize imagination, this would not be possible.